Assalamu alaikum, howdy everyone. I hope you all fine and I'm also fine. By the grace of Allah, A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Friends, today my class is about how often. Malgaru nan zamunga topic de baraki nan zamunga class de baraki the how often. That what's how often, what's the definition of how often, and what's the meaning of how often. Malgaru nan munga wayu chi the how often meaning si share the how often definition of the how often uses si share. First of all, I'm telling about the pronunciation. Many people say that how often. How often. You can say both. You can say how often and you can also say how often. But if you want to say how often, it is much better than how often. So what is how often? How often is interrogative or information question. How often is information question or interrogative. How often is information and interrogative question. How often mungsra information ya malumati ya interrogative sawaliyati mungsra question da mungsra ya question day. And what's the how often means how many time. How often mean how many times. Mungsra how often meaning workai the how many time mean summer time. Say sure. How often is information interrogative question. How often mungsra information question day and how often matlab day how many times. Matlab summer time. And what's the definition? How often is used to ask about that how many time an action happen. How many time an action happens. The definition of how often is that how often is used to ask about that how many time an action happen. The how often definition that is how many time an action happen. Da musa da kar shokai chukumi o kar so salaki the accounting musa shokai counting musa shokai chiyo action summa time ki how many time an action happens. So this is the definition. For example, I can give you an example, and before example, I'm giving you structure. What's the structure of how often? How often structure is first we should use how often. How often plus we should use subject. Sorry, we should use auxiliary plus subject plus verb first form plus object mean the rest of the sentence. So this is a structure. The how often structure the first sentence ko pila munga how often istimalo bia plus passive bia munga auxiliary istimalo auxiliary verb istimalo auxiliary word la pas bia munga subject or bia munga verb first form bia rest of the sentence. This is the structure of how often. First we should use how often in a sentence plus auxiliary plus subject plus verb first form and the last rest of the sentence. So this is the how often structure. Now let me give an example. For example, how often do you play cricket? This is example that how often do you play cricket. How often, this is structure. Let's see the structure. How often, first we should use how often, then auxiliary do is auxiliary, then you as a subject and play as a verb and cricket as the rest of the sentence. So this is this is the example according to the structure. How often do you play cricket? The answer, what will be the answer? The answer will be that I play cricket twice a day. I play cricket twice a day mean that I play cricket 2 times a day. The example मुझसे मतलब that how often do you play cricket? The example मतलब that चित्त how often do you play cricket? चित्त पर सुमर cricket के पर मतलब in a day or in a year in a month that the सु वक्त cricket के. जवाब किसी वाली I play cricket twice a day. जब पर उरस की 2 साल cricket को. Next example I'm giving you that how How often does Ali go to Peshawar? The next example is that how often does Ali go to Peshawar? Mean that Ali so sorry Peshawar tazi Peshawar tazi. What will be the answer? Ali goes to Peshawar Ali goes to Peshawar twice a week. The answer is that Ali goes to Peshawar twice a week. The matlab da the meaning da shu chi Ali Peshawar ta hafta ki do ځلې ځي. Let me repeat it. How often is information an interrogative question? How often موږ سره information او سوالیه question دی. How often means many times. How many times? How often matlab da meaning da chi how many times. And the definition of how often is definition موږ سره how often دی. How the definition is that it is used to ask about how many time an action happens. چې موږ سره یو کار څومره وسله کیږي. This is the definition. And the structure of how often, that first we should use how often in a sentence at the beginning and plus auxiliary plus subject plus verb first one and plus rest of the sentence. دا موږ سره structure دی. And let me give an example. These are the examples. How often do you play cricket? Mean ته څومره ځلې کرکټ کې څو ټایمه کرکټ کې. I play cricket twice a day. زه په ورځ کې 2 ځلې کرکټ کوم. The last example is that how often does Ali go to Peshawar? Ali څو ځله پېښور ته ځي. The answer is that Ali goes to Peshawar twice a week. Ali په هفته کې 2 ځلې پېښور ته ځي. So this was our topic. Inshallah, see you next time with another topic. Thank you so much.